A young couple, deeply in love, sought out Padre Pio with a question that seemed, well, just perfectly reasonable. They'd been engaged for 2 years. They cherished each other, and their desire was to get married. But before committing to a lifetime together, they wanted to be absolutely sure. They wanted to test their compatibility, to live together for a few months, to see if it really worked. The young man spoke, his voice filled with sincerity. "Father, we don't want to make a mistake. Marriage is forever. Wouldn't it be wise to verify, to ensure that we can truly live together, peacefully, harmoniously?" Padre Pio gazed at them, a profound sadness etched on his face. He replied, "I understand your fear. I understand your desire for certainty. But what you propose will not give you what you seek. On the contrary, it will erode, it will destroy exactly what you are trying to protect." The couple was taken aback. They expected a moral condemnation, a sharp rebuke, not this mysterious, almost sorrowful response. Padre Pio continued, "Let me show you what I see when a couple decides to test marriage before committing. It is not a pleasant vision, but you must see it to understand what you risk." And then the saint described what he saw with his spiritual eyes. He began, "I see 2 souls who love each other deeply. I see 2 people who desire to build a life together. I see 2 hearts beating as one. This is all beautiful. This is a gift from God." Padre Pio's voice grew more solemn. "But I also see something else. I see these 2 souls hesitating at the threshold of commitment. I see these 2 people keeping an exit door open. I see these 2 hearts giving, but not completely, not fully, not for forever." He explained, when you decide to live together to test marriage, you are not testing marriage. You are testing something else entirely. You are testing a shared life without commitment. You are testing intimacy without a promise. You are testing a love with a condition. If it doesn't work, I can leave. Padre Pio added, his voice resonating with truth, and that condition changes everything. It poisons, contaminates all that is pure. True love knows no conditions. True love keeps no exit door open. True love says, I give myself to you forever, no matter what may come. The young man protested, his brow furrowed. But that's precisely it. We want to be sure that we can say that sincerely. We want to verify that our love is strong enough to last a lifetime. Padre Pio gently shook his head. You do not understand. Love is not something to be verified, like checking a car before you buy it. Love is not tested, like a product. Love is built. It is chosen. It is decided, each and every day. He continued, his words like a gentle hammer. When you live together, without commitment, you are not building love. You are deconstructing it. Each day you remain together, holding on to the possibility of leaving. You weaken your capacity to truly commit. Each day you play at marriage. Without being married, you become accustomed to a conditional love. Padre Pio then described what he saw happening within the souls of these couples. I see it as a muscle, atrophying, weakening, the muscle of commitment, the muscle of total self-giving. The longer you live in this testing situation, the weaker that muscle becomes. And when the time comes to truly commit, you no longer have the strength. The young woman asked, her voice barely a whisper. But then, how can we know if we are meant for each other? Padre Pio smiled, a tender, compassionate smile. You desire a certainty that no one can give you, not even God. For God respects your freedom. He will not guarantee that your marriage will be easy. He will not promise you that you will never suffer. What he does promise is his grace to navigate trials together, his grace to overcome difficulties, his grace to help your love grow instead of letting it wither and die. He continued, his eyes filled with wisdom. Marriage is not a contract between two people who have verified their compatibility. Marriage is a sacrament, a covenant, a commitment before God and before humanity. And that commitment creates something new. It creates a bond that did not exist before, a bond that gives you the strength to endure what seems impossible. And he saw the devastating consequences on their souls and on their relationships. He explained that this practice was based on an illusion, the illusion that you can test a marriage without being married, the illusion that you can know someone completely before committing, the illusion that certainty is possible in love. But the spiritual reality is different. When two people live together without commitment, they're not testing marriage. They're testing something completely different, something that has nothing to do with marriage. Because marriage isn't just living under the same roof. Marriage isn't just sharing meals and a bed. Marriage is a sacrament, a grace, a spiritual bond that unites two souls for eternity. When you live together without this bond, you live in a sham, an imitation, a counterfeit, and this counterfeit cannot prepare you for true marriage. It can only lead you away from it. Padre Pio saw several spiritual consequences of cohabitation before marriage. The first consequence was the weakening of the capacity for commitment. The longer a couple lived together without committing, the more difficult it became for them to commit. It was as if the muscle of commitment atrophied from lack of use. Padre Pio would say, I see couples who have lived together for years and who can no longer decide to get married. They say they love each other. They say they want to spend their lives together. But something holds them back. Something prevents them from taking the leap. It's because they have lost the ability to commit totally. The second consequence was the loss of the sacredness of the union. When physical intimacy precedes spiritual commitment, it loses its profound meaning. It becomes an act of pleasure rather than an act of total love. Padre Pio explained, the physical union between a man and a woman is supposed to be the expression of a total gift, a gift that says, I give myself to you entirely, body and soul, forever. But when this union takes place without commitment, it says something else. It says, I'll take what you have to offer, but I'm keeping the option to leave. The third consequence was an increased vulnerability to difficulties. Couples who had lived together before marriage had more trouble overcoming crises because they had learned to keep an escape hatch open, because they had never truly burned their boats. Padre Pio would say, I see these couples when they go through trials. Instead of fighting for their marriage, they think about separation. Instead of looking for solutions, they look for excuses to leave. Their muscle of commitment is too weak to bear the weight of difficulties. The fourth consequence was an impact on the children. When children were born into these uncommitted unions, they grew up in insecurity. They felt, even without understanding it, that their parents were not really committed to each other. They grew up with the fear of abandonment. Padre Pio saw these children and his heart would break. He said, children need stability. They need to know that their parents are together forever. When they grow up in a home where commitment is fragile, they carry that fragility within them all their lives. The fifth consequence was a loss of self-confidence. People who went from one cohabitation to another without ever truly committing ended up doubting their ability to build something lasting. They asked themselves, am I capable of being faithful? Am I capable of keeping a commitment? Padre Pio would say, I see these souls wounded by their own choices. They thought they were protecting themselves by avoiding commitment, but they wounded themselves even more deeply because now They no longer believe in their own ability to love forever. I want to tell you now other stories of people who came to see Padre Pio about this question, because each story reveals a different aspect of this spiritual truth. There was a woman, let's call her Ashley, who had been living with a man for 7 years. 7 years without marriage. 7 years in this situation of permanent testing. She came to see Padre Pio because she was suffering. She didn't understand why she felt so empty, despite the presence of this man. Padre Pio looked at her with compassion. He told her, "My daughter, you give your body without receiving a promise. You share your life without commitment. You wait every day for him to propose. And every day that passes without that proposal, a part of your heart dies a little." Ashley cried. She said, "But he says he loves me. He says he wants to be with me." Padre Pio replied, "Words without commitment are just wind. True love is proven by actions, and the supreme act of love is total commitment. If he refuses to commit after 7 years, it's not because he's not ready. It's because he's keeping his options open. He's keeping the possibility of leaving someday." The saint continued, "Ask yourself why you accept this situation. Is it because you're afraid of losing him? Is it because you believe you don't deserve better? God created you to be loved with a total love. Don't settle for a partial love." Ashley followed Padre Pio's advice. She spoke to her partner. She told him that she could no longer continue like this. She said, "Either we get married or we separate. No more middle ground." The man was surprised. He said he needed time to think, and that time turned into silence, into distance, into separation. Ashley's heart was broken. She wondered if she had made the right choice. But Padre Pio had told her to trust him, and she did. 2 years later, Ashley met another man, a man who knew what he wanted, a man who wasn't afraid to commit. After 6 months of dating, he proposed, and she said yes. Ashley wrote a letter to Padre Pio to thank him. She wrote, "Father, you saved me from a life of emptiness. I thought I had found love, but it was an illusion. Now, I know true love. Love that commits. Love that gives everything." There was also a man, let's call him Ethan, who had come to see Padre Pio with a different question. Ethan had lived with 3 different women over the past 10 years. Each time, he had believed that she was the one. Each time, the relationship had failed after a few years. Ethan asked Padre Pio, "Father, why do my relationships always fail? Am I choosing the wrong partners?" Padre Pio looked at him sternly. He said, "The problem isn't the women you choose. The problem is you. You don't know what love is. You're confusing love with romantic feelings, and when those feelings fade, you think love is dead." He continued, "You live with these women like a renter lives in an apartment. You stay as long as you like it, and when you don't like it anymore, you look for another apartment. But marriage isn't a rental agreement. It's ownership. And when you're an owner, you don't leave at the first sign of trouble. You repair things. You improve things. You invest." Mark protested, "But I don't want to stay in an unhappy relationship just because I made a commitment." Father Pio replied, "You don't understand. Commitment doesn't condemn you to unhappiness. Commitment gives you the means to build happiness. Because when you know you can't leave, you find solutions. You work on yourself, you work on the relationship, and little by little, happiness comes." The saint added, "Your 3 previous relationships failed precisely because you weren't committed. As soon as difficulties arose, you looked for the exit. You never learned to weather the storms. You never developed the muscles of enduring love." Mark was shaken by these words. He began to see his failures in a new light. It wasn't the women's fault. It was his own inability to commit that had sabotaged each relationship. Father Pio gave him a piece of advice. He told him, "The next time you meet a woman, don't live with her right away. Court her, get to know her, and if you decide she's the one you want, commit, marry her, and stay married, no matter what." Mark followed this advice. He met a woman a few years later. This time, he did things differently. No cohabitation, respectful courtship, a marriage proposal after a year, and a wedding in the church. This marriage also had its difficulties, but this time Mark didn't look for the exit. He looked for solutions, and the solutions came, slowly, painfully. But they came. Years later, Mark testified, "Father Pio was right. My first relationships failed because I wasn't committed. This time, I learned what it truly means to love. To love isn't leaving when it's hard. To love is staying and working through it." I want to talk to you now about an aspect that many people don't understand, the spiritual aspect of living together before marriage. Because beyond the psychological and relational consequences, there are profound spiritual consequences. Father Pio saw these consequences with his mystical eyes. He saw what was happening in the souls of people who lived together without being married. He said, "When a man and a woman unite physically, something spiritual happens. A bond is created between their souls. This bond is ordained by God. It's supposed to be permanent. It's supposed to be a reflection of the union of Christ with his church. But when this union happens without commitment, without sacrament, this bond is distorted. Instead of uniting souls for eternity, it wounds them, because the souls know, even unconsciously, that this bond isn't complete, that something is missing, that it isn't blessed by God. Father Pio explained, "I see these souls who bear the scars of their uncommitted unions. Each time they united with someone without getting married, a part of themselves remained with that person. And when the relationship ended, that part didn't come back. It stayed there like an amputated limb. That's why, the saint said, people who have had many uncommitted relationships have so much trouble truly committing. They've left pieces of themselves behind. They're no longer whole. They can no longer give what they no longer have." But Father Pio also gave hope. He said that God's grace could heal these wounds, that the sacrament of reconciliation could restore what had been broken, that God could make whole what had been fragmented. He encouraged people who had lived in cohabitation to go to confession, to ask for forgiveness, to start over on a new foundation, and he assured them that God was merciful, that God forgave, that God healed. Another important teaching of Father Pio concerned the difference between love and lust. Many couples confuse these two things. They believe that if they lust after each other, they love each other. They believe that the intensity of their passion is proof of their love. Father Pio said, "Lust is one thing, love is another. Lust seeks to take, love seeks to give. Lust seeks its own satisfaction. Love seeks the good of the other. Lust flares up quickly and dies out just as quickly. Love grows slowly and lasts forever." He explained, "When you live together without getting married, you feed lust at the expense of love. You get used to taking without giving completely. You get used to satisfying your needs without fully committing, and lust ends up suffocating love." That's why, Father Pio said, couples who live together before marriage often have less passion after marriage. They've exhausted their lust during cohabitation. They no longer have anything new to discover. They no longer have anything to look forward to. But couples who wait, who save themselves for marriage, retain that anticipation. They retain that mystery. They retain something precious to offer on their wedding day. And this waiting, far from diminishing their love, strengthens it. I also want to address the practical question that many people ask. Isn't it reasonable to check if we're compatible before committing for life? Father Pio answered this question with another question. Compatible in what? Compatible in small daily habits? Compatible in culinary preferences? Compatible in sleep schedules? He said, if that's what you want to test, you're going to be disappointed, because you'll always discover incompatibilities, always differences, always things that annoy you about the other person. And you'll conclude that you're not made for each other. You'll look for someone else. And with that other person, you'll discover other incompatibilities. And so on, indefinitely. The truth, Father Pio explained, is that there is no perfectly compatible person for you. Two different people will always have differences. The question isn't to find someone with whom you'll never have conflicts. The question is to find someone with whom you're prepared to go through the conflicts. He added, compatibility isn't something you discover, it's something you build. Two people become compatible when they decide to adapt to one another, when they decide to make compromises, when they decide to grow together. And that decision can only be made within the framework of total commitment. Father Pio would often give the example of two rough stones. At first, they don't fit together perfectly. They have edges that rub, surfaces that don't quite match. But if you leave them together, if you let them tumble against each other, little by little, they polish each other smooth. Little by little, they become even. Little by little, they eventually fit together perfectly. That's how marriage works, he would say. Difficulties aren't a sign that you're not meant for each other. Difficulties are the polishing that makes you compatible. Conflicts are the friction that smooths out your rough edges. And in the end, if you stay together, that you become perfectly suited to one another. But that can only happen if you're committed, because without commitment, at the first painful friction, you'll separate. You'll look for another stone, and the polishing process will start all over again. And it will stop again at the first sign of trouble, and you'll always remain rough, never polished, never truly compatible with anyone. Now, I want to tell you what happened with the young couple who came to see Father Pio. They listened to everything the saint told them, and they were shaken. The young woman said, "Father, we didn't know. We thought we were doing something reasonable. We thought we were protecting ourselves." Father Pio responded, "I understand. Society tells you it's normal. Society tells you it's wise. But society doesn't see what I see. Society doesn't understand the spiritual realities that are at play." He gave them some advice. He told them, if you truly love each other, if you want to build a life together, then commit, get married, take the leap of faith together, and trust in God to give you the grace you'll need. He added, yes, it will be difficult at times. Yes, you'll discover things about each other that will surprise you. Yes, there will be conflicts. But it's in those difficulties that your love will grow. It's in those trials that you'll truly become one. The young couple followed Father Pio's advice. They didn't move in together. They continued their engagement. And a few months later, they were married in the church. The first few years were exactly as Father Pio had predicted. Difficult, full of surprises, full of conflict. They discovered incompatibilities they hadn't seen before, but because they were committed, because they had made a definitive choice, they worked at it. They prayed, they learned, and their love grew. 20 years later, they returned to San Giovanni Rotondo. Father Pio had been dead for a long time, but they prayed at his grave, and they thanked God for the advice the saint had given them. The woman said to her husband, "Do you remember? We wanted to live together to test our marriage. If we had done that, we probably wouldn't be together today. We would have given up at the first sign of trouble." The husband replied, "Yes, Father Pio saved our marriage before it even began." Now, I want to talk to you, because maybe this video is about you directly. Maybe you're living with someone without being married. Maybe you're thinking about testing your relationship before committing. Maybe you believe that's the reasonable thing to do. The first question I want to ask you is this: why are you hesitant to commit? What scares you about marriage? Is it the fear of failure, the fear of boredom, the fear of losing your freedom? Father Pio said that these fears are legitimate, but he also said that they shouldn't dictate your decisions, because if you let fear decide, you'll never commit. Fear will always find a reason to wait, a reason to check again, a reason to test again. The second question: do you truly love this person? Not with a conditional love, not with a love of convenience, but with a love that's ready to give everything, that's ready to sacrifice, that's ready to commit forever. If the answer is yes, then why keep an exit open? Why play at marriage without being married? Why live in a simulation when you can live in reality? The third question: do you believe in God? Do you believe that He can give you the grace to get through the difficulties? Do you believe that He can transform your love into something greater than you can imagine? If the answer is yes, then trust Him, commit, get married, and let Him do the rest. I want to give you now the advice that Father Pio gave to couples who were considering cohabitation. First piece of advice: don't give in to the pressure from society. Society tells you that living together before marriage is normal, that it's even recommended, but society doesn't understand the spiritual realities. Follow your conscience, not the trend. Second piece of advice: work on your relationship during the engagement. Engagement isn't a time of useless waiting. It's a time of preparation. Learn to know each other. Talk about your expectations, your fears, your dreams, but do it without living together. Third piece of advice: pray together. Prayer is the best way to prepare for marriage. When you pray together, you invite God into your relationship. You ask Him to bless it. You ask Him to guide it. Fourth piece of advice: set a wedding date. Don't stay engaged indefinitely. Long engagements are dangerous. They create a temptation to live as if you're married without being married. Set a reasonable date and prepare for that day. Fifth piece of advice: trust God. You can't plan everything, you can't control everything, but you can trust the one who can. God won't abandon you. He'll give you the grace you need. I also want to speak to those who are already living together without being married. If that's your situation, this video is for you too. It's not too late to change direction. Father Pio never condemned those who had made this mistake. He helped them get back on their feet. He encouraged them to make the right choice, even late in the game. If you're living with someone without being married, here's what Father Pio would tell you. Recognize that this situation isn't ideal. Not to condemn you, but to see clearly where you stand. Next, make a decision. Either you commit or you separate, but do not remain in this undefined middle ground, which is neither singleness nor marriage. This middle ground is toxic to your soul. If you love this person, if you want to spend your life with them, then get married as soon as possible. Transform your imitation into reality. Transform your cohabitation into a blessed marriage. And if you're not ready to commit, then perhaps you need to ask yourself some difficult questions. Maybe this relationship isn't the one God intends for you. Maybe you're using this person without truly loving them. This video isn't here by chance. The revelations I'm sharing here come directly from the spiritual legacy of Padre Pio. They've been carefully guarded and passed down to reach you today. Every video like this takes hours of research, sifting through archives at San Giovanni Rotondo, hours of prayer to discern what to share and how to share it. If what you've heard today has touched your heart, if you feel this truth can help other souls in need, then I invite you to become a part of this mission. The super thanks you see just below isn't just a button. It's your way of saying, yes, these truths must continue to be shared. Yes, other Catholics need to hear this message about marriage. When you click on that golden heart, you become a messenger of this wisdom. I'll finish with a prayer. A prayer for all couples who hesitate at the threshold of commitment. A prayer for those who are living together without being married. A prayer for those who are seeking the right path. Lord, you created man and woman to love each other and unite in marriage. You made this union a sacrament, a sign of your love for your church. Help us to respect this precious gift. Give couples who hesitate the courage to commit. Give those living in cohabitation the grace to see clearly and choose the right path. Give all engaged couples the wisdom to prepare for marriage in chastity and prayer. And bless all marriages, the difficult marriages, the happy marriages, marriages that are just beginning, and those that have lasted for decades. May your love be the foundation of every union. May your grace be the strength of every couple. Amen. Tell me in the comments, do you know any couples who lived together before marriage? What did you observe? Your testimonies can help others understand the stakes of this decision. Share your experience. I read all the comments, and I pray for every person who writes them. May the light of Padre Pio guide you to true love. May the grace of God give you the courage to commit, and may the peace of Christ fill your heart and your home. Peace be with you, today and forever. May every couple who watches this video find the courage to commit totally to true love.